and welcome to Doing Disasters Differently, the podcast with Renae Hanvin, which is all about inspiring you to start thinking and doing disasters a little bit differently too. In this episode, I'm talking with Leanne Schmidt, Manager, Emergency Support at the Local Government Association of South Australia, and we're talking about EM in SA. So a little bit about Leanne. She's been with the Local Government Association of South Australia for about 18 months. And prior to that, she was at the South Australian State Emergency Services for 10 years, including 5 years as a regional commander for the South region. Prior to that, she worked for the South Australian Fire Services in a variety of roles, including state and regional operations, operational planning, incident management, policy, training, media and communications, bushfire prevention, and lessons management. Gosh, what a great person to be in emergency management and talking to today. Now, I like to always start with where we met. And as some of you know, I've been working a lot in South Australia and have met some really wonderful people across various stakeholder groups. Now, I was introduced to Leanne about a year and a half ago, so when she just started at the SALGA, and we connected more when I delivered the Social Capital and Social Infrastructure Snapshot project with Professor Daniel Aldrich. Now, Leanne is the epitome of a passionate, proactive, and completely approachable person in local government. And there are many of them, but she absolutely is. She doesn't just respond to my requests, and I've got to be honest, because she's so lovely and helpful, I've sent her quite a few requests over the past few years, but she proactively shares information or contacts to help me help SA. So she goes above and beyond in terms of when she gets shared information, she just forwards it on to me, and I really, really, really respect and appreciate that. I think Leanne is definitely a fantastic example of our #bridging tie. Leanne, so good to chat with you today.
Thank you. Lovely to chat with you.
Now, I shared a short summary about your career in the intro, but there's nothing better than hearing it from the person at first hand. So could you share some of what you, why you got into the emergency management sector and how you ended up in your role at the Local Government Association of South Australia?
Sure. Well, I think like many people, I sort of fell into emergency management. Yeah. I did start my career, I guess, as a volunteer firefighter with the Country Fire Service, and then that was appealing quite a lot. And I was studying conservation and land management, which was quite relevant to the CFS, and I ended up joining as a staff member, and I was lucky enough to join part of what was like a graduate program, and we spent 12 months just spending time in each of the different parts of CFS. So that included training and bushfire prevention and work health safety and operations everywhere, and it just gave us a really good feel for what the organisation does and how all the bits fit together and how they're crucial to each other. And then ended up working in different roles in training, in operational planning. I spent quite a lot of time on an incident management project, and I did a resource allocation project, sort of allocating or identifying the best ways to allocate resources to brigades like trucks and equipment, that sort of thing, and lessons management and media, so quite a variety of things. Spent 18 years there, and then moved to the SES, and again that was initially in an incident management project role, and then moved into planning and then into a regional commander role, which was fantastic. It was covering, there was only 2 regions in SES in South Australia, North and South, and the South region that I looked after covered the metro area, Adelaide Hills, Riverland, right down to the southeast of the state. So I spent 5 years in that role, and like I said, I really loved that. I enjoyed working with the volunteers, and I had a fantastic team of district officers. And sort of towards my time in that role was the River Murray flooding, which was a huge event, as we know, and big impacts to the community. And we learned a lot as an organisation. There were so many new challenges that were thrown at us that we were really learning a lot and developing new ways of working, which was really interesting. And during that time, one of my roles was to work with the chief executive officers of each of the councils that are along the River Murray, and meeting with them weekly, and with our SES CEO, and just working through some of the major challenges that they were picking up. So we had a lot to do with councils at that point, and just coincidentally, as I was starting to think it might be time for a change, this role came up. So, yeah, I applied, and I guess the thing that really appealed was the ability to join the dots between the various emergency services and the emergency management sector and local government. And I think having that, there's a bit of an alignment, I think, too, with it's sort of the volunteer organisations where it was supporting the staff and the volunteers to support the community. It's very similar here, sort of supporting councils and their employees to support their community. So that's how I ended up where I am.
My gosh, do you know what I love? The best thing I love about these podcasts, apart from, everyone's great ideas about doing disasters differently, is just the background and stories. Like there's so much, I mean, gosh, your experience and your wealth of knowledge and you're really holistic. You've had so much experience across the whole ecosystem of, emergency management. And I love that, you've, I guess, through the identification and connecting into the councils, it's like, okay, well, there's more I can do. And, there's more people I can connect and more, policies and processes and procedures and ops that can kind of be created. So I literally can't think of anyone better to be going into a local government role in this space, because councils and governments, across the whole of South Australia and all of Australia are so fundamental at the core of disaster resilience and emergency management. So what exactly do you do as the manager of emergency support? What do you actually do?
So my role, and I think probably what you were saying too, I think I know a little bit about a lot of different things and a lot of different connections and things, and I don't propose to be an expert in anything, but what I really do like to do that's been valuable in my emergency management career and is valuable in this role is that I know a lot of the people that know the stuff, and I can get everybody in the right room together to solve different problems and to come up with different arrangements. And so that's been, I was
going to say, really, I think we're like kindred spirits, Leanne. That's so much of what I do as well. It's that social capital within us.
Yes, yeah, get the people in the room together and we can do anything.
Exactly.
So my role is really leading what's called the Local Government Functional Support Group. So the arrangements in South Australia are a little bit different in local government compared to some of the other states. So councils don't have a role necessarily in emergency response or management apart from sort of that liaison and support kind of role. So the State Emergency Management Plan here identifies the control agencies like the Country Fire Service for bushfire and SES for flood, that sort of thing. And then there is also what's we called functional support groups. So there are a number of those, and each functional support group has sort of government and or non-government agencies in it, and they provide a functional support role to control agencies. So we look after the Local Government Association here is the lead of the Local Government Functional Support Group, and each of the 68 councils in South Australia and the 6 regional local government associations are members of that. And so my role is to support the roles of the Local Government Functional Support Group, which is 2 main things really. One is about making sure there's coordinated operational support from local government during response and recovery, and the other one is supporting the preparedness of the local government sector in building their capability and capacity to participate in emergency management.
So what I was going to say, what a great role in the sense, again, bringing in all your experience and networks and connections to really build the capacity and, the capabilities, I guess, across the local government area.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really great so far already. That just working that building that capability and capacity is updating a lot of training that was previously provided. So currently working with the SES on developing that. There was a short course that was quite out of date, but developing information so that councils, when they do go in to support control agencies at flooding kind of events, and that they're safe in the way that they do. So that a course specifically designed for council employees to understand risks associated with swift water and flooding and that sort of thing, and to be able to make that available. And what hasn't been available here either in the past was online training, and when you've got 68 councils spread out over a very large area, it's really hard to get around to do face-to-face delivery in all those places. So we're doing a lot of building online training, as well as having regular webinars. So we now have a summer and a winter webinar where I bring all the different people from the different agencies that can provide briefings and information to councils, and provide them with the information that they need as to build that preparedness.
I think it's so important too, and I guess what I see a big part of your role, as I think you've just explained it, is really coordinating the information sharing so that those people in the councils who, and I guess not everyone has, disaster resilience and emergency management in their BAU, but we need everyone to be across it because there's so many, different types of disruptions coming as well. And it sounds like, and I've been obviously talking to you over the past kind of 18 months, that you're really leading a really wonderful coordinated approach to help everyone build their capabilities and capacity, in a way that uniforms sort of everyone, brings together everyone's what they do know, but also then enables them to go off and, deliver it in the way that they need to in their particular area. Now, since you've been with the LGASA, have there been any big events in the that the state's faced, and what were the key EM challenges?
Well, the last big event really I was involved in was the one at SES when the River Murray was flooding in 2022-23. There have been a number of activations of the State Emergency Centre and Zone Emergency Support Teams, and we, LGA as lead, sort of participates in those. And it's a real variety, and as we all hear, everybody's saying, more frequent events, more impacts. Cascading and compounding events, all those sorts of things. So we're getting all sorts of things that are a bit out of the box. So there's sorts of things like around briefings on bird flu and power outages, even the Optus outage, that was back in 2023. But a lot of those sort of events are a little bit unexpected, but not unpredictable. I think there's a lot of things that we need to be doing as a sector to look at the crazy things that could potentially happen, and nothing should be not considered. Certainly we've got, at the moment, there's the outback inland river flooding where we've got waters moving from Queensland into South Australia and currently isolating the town of Inaminka, and I literally just got off a briefing for that, and there was some talk about the activities that the community is doing there, in that they are doing a lot of self-organising and organising community-led events while SES is there providing leadership and protection from the floods. The community is still in there talking and working out a meeting with the Progress Association and how they can support each other, and what can happen if they end up with some tourists up there, what are the options. So really relying on each other, particularly in those really small and isolated communities, is even more important than in metro areas.
Yeah, you're so right. And going back to the different types of impacts, I've actually started adding a slide of a zombie apocalypse into a lot of my presentations now, because the slides that I have about all the different types of impacts, like there's so many on them, and it's like there's too many to kind of get your head around. So I'm like, there's other things we haven't even thought about coming. So I guess, being ready for all types of disasters and disruptions is really key, and no doubt is a big part of your role. So why are councils or local governments so important when it comes to emergency management?
So councils have just got that really critical role, very much enabling and helping, supporting control agencies, I guess. They've got those well-established relationships within the community networks, and they've got the local knowledge and resources. They understand their own council area and the people within them, their strengths and weaknesses, their vulnerabilities. So one of the things that we are working really hard to do is to make sure that we do provide liaison roles at incident management teams and zone emergency support teams, which has been sort of happening in a bit more of an ad hoc way. There are arrangements, but it has been a little bit ad hoc over the years, and that's one thing that we're working really closely with the control agencies and SAPOL as SA Police as a coordinating agency to say the most important thing is to get council in the room as quickly as you can so that they can provide that valuable information. They've got, know their communities, but they also know their area, the geography, the access, so they can provide all that operational support. They've got the local resources, and that it's important to access those locally before we branch out further into what we do, where we can help coordinate any council to support any other council. But we really want to make sure that local knowledge is being tapped into first.
Oh, 1,000%. And for anyone listening who's a funder, oh my gosh, local councils and governments absolutely need more funding and more focus, because they are so central to community preparedness, but also recovery and rebuilding afterwards. Now, Leanne, as you know, clearly you know, because I can't stop talking about it half the time, I'm really passionate about social capital and social infrastructure. And as we record this podcast, my team and I are delivering a pilot project in South Australia with Professor Daniel Aldrich after our snapshot project, where we're creating a national social capital and social infrastructure measurement framework and pilot testing Professor Aldrich's data in 3 communities in SA. From a local government association lens, what excites you about social capital and social infrastructure getting some more airtime in the emergency management and disaster resilience ecosystem?
I did pick up that you're a little bit passionate about this, Renae.
Can you tell?
Yeah.
After all the 50 million emails I send you about, oh my gosh, what about this? What about this?
No, and I'm also very passionate about it, and certainly councils can really offer so much in terms of social capital and social infrastructure, and I think getting that airtime will really highlight the value of that, as well as being able to hopefully identify where we can build and increase social capital. I guess the local government sector really has a lot of ownership in terms of the social capital through community groups and networks, sports clubs, parks, all those sorts of things that councils provide and support, as well as the networks within communities through different community groups and in libraries and all those sorts of things. And I think it's super important that we can see where that capital is strong, but also to see, where do we need to provide support and help uplift and build that community capacity. One of the things that, and you mentioned about that, building that resilience and that ability to work through the different phases of emergencies. And we know that where communities have got that strong social capital, that they can work to be prepared together. And there's lots of projects out there like Bushfire Ready and Fiery Women and Red Cross Emergency Ready workshops where communities can come together and work together to identify what they need to prepare for an emergency, how they can support each other, and that builds that resilience through the different parts of, or the different phases of emergencies. And certainly through into the relief and recovery. And we've still seen that through the River Murray flooding, that relief and recovery process. And a lot of the things like the community barbecues and things like that are happening afterwards, where people get to have those conversations about how they're going through things, and just to hear each other out and to be able to provide support on an ongoing basis and check in with each other. And so I guess from a local government perspective, the stronger those social capital that cohesion is, and the more that councils can provide that social infrastructure that supports the social capital, I think that the better and more resilient you're going to have as a community. And it's something that councils want to be able to do with, to provide that support, but also there's so many benefits to be gained from that in that it will potentially save costs and save lives and all those sorts of things if that social capital is strong.
Yeah, 100%. And you were at the presentations and forums and sessions we had with Daniel, and I think it was what really came out for me was that it's kind of the missing piece of the puzzle. And I'm really personally hoping that by doing this pilot project and demonstrating the value, that absolutely we can identify what the great things are in communities and what the communities want to support them to foster and build greater connections. And even those connections, again, the bonding, bridging, linking ties, like I think Professor Aldrich also always mentions that the hardest ties, but the most important ones, are bridging ones, where you're building connections with people, not like you, they have different norms, and also those linking ties. So being able to identify and measure and then, work to strengthening ties between communities and those in roles of power or authority. So like local councils or emergency services, to me, that's just a no-brainer. If you can measure and then strengthen, and then enhance those ties, then that's every stakeholder group getting more prepared and being able to recover and, have resilience that's better than anything, that we could have thought about. In saying that, there are communities that are really strong at the moment as well. So we also want to recognise those communities that are strong as well. Now, I always finish with the same 2 questions. So can I ask you, what would be the 2 things you'd like to be done differently in the disaster space?
I think certainly from observations that I've had in our State Emergency Centre and things, I think that sometimes the emergency services can be very focused on addressing the problem, like whatever it is, the impact. So if it's a power outage, it's about getting the power back on, which of course is really important. But some of the gaps that I see is that while that focuses on resolving the cause or the problem, the flow-on effects and the impacts that are happening in the community are not always quickly picked up on. I'd like to see that happening a lot more quickly, where we're understanding who's being impacted, what does it mean for them in the next 12, 24 hours or a week down the track if they don't have power, or if they're isolated from floodwaters, what does that mean? And I think we can be even more proactive than we are now. It's certainly improving over the years, and I think we could still do better.
Love it. And the second thing?
I think continuing to build relationships within, and it's a different sort of tie, I guess, that we've got really strong connections between each other in emergency services and across the sector. In the emergency management sector, we've got great connections between each other because we are quite a small state and there are a small number of players. And so when you, almost for us, that's social capital in that we go into the State Emergency Centre and it's all like a bit of a reunion. It's like, oh yeah, haven't seen you for a couple of months and catching up. And I think that's fantastic. And I think we can still continue to improve those connections, as well as streamline some of the things that keep coming up as problems, like providing funding and things for councils that are providing support, ways to make sure that we streamline that. And we're also working very closely with other agencies where we're developing joint operating guidelines. So between the local government functional support group and the country fire service, about how do we actually work together, how does the request happen, and when they're on the fire ground, what support are they providing each other and what are the expectations. So we're just clarifying, I guess, some of those expectations that continues to make that more clear as we go along.
I really like those 2 questions, and I think, again, just my analysis of them, they're kind of connected in the sense that if we do more collaborative kind of planning, or again, build our social capital more in those bridging ties, then we better understand each other, consider the consequences. So it's not just that command and control. It actually has, I guess, a more holistic approach as to, what are the impacts, direct or indirect? And then, yes, we have to turn the power back on or put out the fire, but what are the other things that the community needs us to do as well? Yeah, awesome. So thank you so much to Leanne Schmidt, from the Manager of Emergency Support at the Local Government Association of South Australia. And we've been talking about EM in SA. Thanks so much, Leanne. Really awesome to talk with you again.
Thank you so much.
I hope today's episode of Doing Disasters Differently, the podcast, has inspired you to think a little bit differently about the role you can play before, during, and after disasters. Given the new era of more frequent and compounding disasters that we are now in, let's work together to build an all-hazards disaster resilient future for all. Find out more about the work I'm leading as a social enterprise building disaster resilience at resilientready.org. Don't forget to subscribe to Doing Disasters Differently, the podcast, through your preferred platform. And we'll see you next time when we discover new ways of doing disasters differently together.